You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. I'm Matt Adams, Dave Griffiths, and Mike Chappell not joining me this week for the game recap version of the podcast. It'll be just me looking back at the Colts win, the 10-6 win over the New England Patriots over in Frankfurt, Germany. And I'll tell you what, it was an ugly win, but there will be people who will argue that there is no such thing as an ugly win because any win is a win. And I think you're going to have to just think about it that way when you look at this game for the Colts. They climbed to 5-5 with the win, more wins than they had last season, and probably still sort of in the hunt for the AFC playoff race. I mean, they could get a wild card. You just don't know. I mean, they've given you a reason to keep watching this team, even though sometimes that offense is pretty rough. I mean, if you were to take a blind draw out of the statistics of this game, you wouldn't necessarily think that the Colts would be the team that won this game. New England had more first downs. They were a little bit better on third down efficiency. They ran more plays. They had more total yards on offense, 340 to 264. Slightly more yards per play, better on yards per play, 5 to 4.9, so not a huge difference there. But the rushing yards, my goodness, 167 to 70, and that's supposed to be one of the Colts' strengths, but obviously when that's the only thing that you have to worry about and you put the ball in the quarterback's hands, then that's kind of what New England did this week. But the Colts were outrushed 167 to 70, and really strikingly there, 4.6 yards per rush for New England, 2.7 yards per rush for the Colts. New England also led in time of possession in this game. But there were some key areas in which the Colts had the advantage, namely the points. The most important statistic of all, of course, is points scored, and the Colts scored 10 while New England managed only 6. And then also red zone. While New England had 4 red zone opportunities, they didn't score a touchdown on any of them. The Colts, on the other hand, with their red zone attempt, the one attempt that they had early in the game, they were able to make good on a touchdown on that one. So, when it comes down to it again, sometimes the statistics can be misleading, although no one will look at those statistics and tell you that this was a pretty game by any stretch of the imagination. Looking at some of the statistics from this game, 18 of 28, the individual statistics, 18 of 28 for 194 yards for Gardner Minshew, 6.9 yards per completion, no touchdowns, no sacks, and 1 interception for a quarterback rating of 69.6. Not necessarily a banner day for Gardner, and if you talk about misleading statistics, Mac Jones had a better passer rating, 79.2. He was 15 of 20 for 170 yards, 8.5 yards per completion, but he had 1 interception, including a killer in the red zone, and then he was sacked 5 times. So, when you look at statistics and people love to pound their chest and say, oh, this statistics proves this guy does this or this guy does that, they can be misleading. I mean, to think that Mac Jones had a better quarterback rating on this particular day when he had 5 sacks and the killer interception, I think we just know that doesn't necessarily meet the eye test. He was a little bit more efficient as far as completion percentage goes and as far as yards per completion go, and that's kind of the metrics, some of the metrics that quarterback rating measures, but that's just kind of one of those things that it's interesting to note. In the ground game, Shane Steichen said afterwards that, they were just going to kind of ride the hot hand. They thought the hot hand was Jonathan Taylor, but to me it sounds totally like the team has turned this running game over to Jonathan Taylor. He had 23 carries for 69 yards, just 3 yards per carry, a long of 10, and the key would be a touchdown on a 4th and goal where they tried to do the quarterback sneak on third, didn't really get that close, and then they kind of ran this little outside stretch play to Taylor, who was just able to kind of weave his way around the defense. He got a good block there from Kylan Granson on the outside, was able to get it in, and that was really the most important play of the game because it was the game's only touchdown. Zach Moss, just 1 carry for a couple yards. Gardner Minshew credited with 2 carries, minus 1 yard. Just not a whole lot going there in the running game, but, on the touchdown drive especially, when they needed to get yards, they were able to get yards. When they needed to get a first down on a 3rd and short, they were able to convert those types of things. So the running game did just enough, but it was not great by any stretch of the imagination. In the passing game, Michael Pittman Jr. leading all receivers, 12 targets, 8 receptions for 4 yards, 10.5 yards per completion, a long of 14 for Pitt. Josh Downs, a couple of catches for 40 yards, his long of 28. He had 3 targets. Downs, it was clear that, they weren't necessarily sure he was going to play in this game, and he was out there a little bit more in the second half, but they didn't want to risk any big injuries to re-aggravate the knee that's been giving him some issues the last couple of weeks. His big catch, though, was a 28-yard catch, and that was a key moment in the game. The Colts had Mac Jones made a head-scratching interception where he severely underthrew a receiver, or it was the tight end, I think, and Julian Blackmon was there and got it. It was right at the red zone. This would have been something that probably would have won the game for the Patriots, and instead, it's an interception. Blackmon gets it out to the 5, and the Colts face like a third down play, and they don't really want to punt right there because, you punt at that point, there's a lot of time left on the clock, and you're probably going to get New England, even though Rigoberto Sanchez had a pretty good game punting, you didn't want to give the Patriots the ball right there, and what could have been decent field position. But they were able to make a nice completion. Minshew kind of scrambled around a little bit and threw a dart to Josh Downs, who completely laid out and caught that pass for 28 yards. That helped to keep the drive alive, make New England burn their timeouts, that sort of thing. Just a huge, huge play in that game. Isaiah McKenzie, 4 receptions for 31 yards. They really kind of featured him in the first drive that they had there, and that included a 30-yard completion, and he also had one that got dropped for a few yards there. Alec Pierce, 1 catch, 21 yards. Will Mallory, 1 for 7. Jonathan Taylor, 1 for 6. Colin Granson, 1 for 5. And, I don't want to pick on Gardner too much this week, but they did leave. The Colts left some plays out there on the field on offense, I felt. And there were a couple of opportunities they had to make some big plays. If he could have just settled down a little bit, made a little bit better of a throw on some of these longer passes. I know Granson had one that really could have been a big play. And Granson may have, you could also make the argument Granson maybe should have caught that one. It did get onto his hands, and you kind of go the rule of thumb that, if it hits the receiver's hands, they should probably catch it. But they did leave a few of those plays. And then, for Gardner himself, it feels like he's imagining this rush that's coming that's not quite yet there. And I'm sure the coaching staff has talked to him. These are very, very smart football people. I'm just a layman, a fan who, observes and watches and kind of talks about what I see. And you see Gardner out there as soon as he gets the snap, and it's like he's looking to run around. If the first pass that he wants to throw is not there, then it's time to run around. And, he wasn't sacked this week. He was able to keep the ball out of trouble for the most part, except for one killer interception, and that ended up not being a killer interception for the Colts. He's got to just settle down a little bit. Give a couple more seconds there, or a second and a half, before he decides he needs to, run around and scramble, because he made some plays doing that, yes, but there were some other plays where I feel like if he just could have set himself a little bit better, made a little bit better of a throw, then perhaps you have a better result there. But you know what? I'm not gonna. The Colts again, 5-5. This was essentially a road game. It was really a road game for both teams on this, weird having to go to Germany. The Colts practiced practiced on Thursday. And then they left for Germany on this flight that was like, 8 or 9 hours. And then after they got off the plane, it was time for a walkthrough. And the Patriots had to go through the same thing, even though it was technically a home game for New England. They still had to deal with the travel and the time difference and all that stuff. And, they didn't even muster a touchdown. The Patriots didn't. So, I can't say too many things. There are not a lot of negatives there, because the Colts came out and they won the game. And that's really the most important part of having to do all this. But, it was not a beautiful game. That is a tough, even though the Patriots are not a good football team. And clearly on offense, they have lots of struggles. They're pretty stout defensively. They scheme well, and Belichick is always a tough guy to play against, even when his teams are bad. And you feel like, if you're a New England fan here, you're thinking if we could just gotten some stuff out of our offense, we're going to win this game, because the defense is going to lock down the Colts, and they pretty much did in this game. But let's hear from quarterback Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, you try to stick to your progressions, your read as much as you can, and then, at some point if it feels like it's not there, if you have to move off your spot. I thought our guys did a great job today of reacting and those second reactions, getting open, and that was a big part of our offense today.
What does it say about Josh that he was able to go through this week where he didn't practice, flies overseas, and then goes and is still able to make that play?
Yep, good football player, I'd say more than anything. Dude can play ball. He has a knack for getting open, for catching the ball. That was huge. Wasn't a perfect ball. He lays out. Super proud of him, happy for him, and excited to get him healthy and rolling.
You knew he was a good ball player. Like he's open all the time, but just like the toughness that he showed. Like what did that kind of show you about him as just a person?
Absolutely, he just wants to help the team win. And I think that's one of the best things we have going right now is everybody's just invested in winning. It doesn't matter how it happens, what it looks like. Everybody just wants to win. And, yeah, it feels good, man.
Gardner, what did you see on that play to get you out of the shadow of your own goalpost? What were you looking for, and what did you see?
First kind of looking to the left. Progression was taken back right. They played a coverage, wasn't really expecting. Did a good job there. But line gave us time and was able to kind of move around a little bit, and then Josh just made a heck of a play.
Gardner, coming off the field, your career quarterback decisions can be pretty wide. Coming off the field, be on the game, turn around and see, number 4's in the game now. What's the reaction not seeing that?
Yeah, no, super interesting, man. That's a hard spot to go in, on your own 15, no timeouts, 2 minutes. Like, that's tough. It's pretty fired up for our defense, Had a good opportunity there. Wish we could have ended with the ball, in a 4-minute situation. But, it was a tough deal.
Gardner, this is a big win. You've traveled so far for this. You're going on to a bye week. I imagine all the lads in the locker room are quite happy about this. What's sort of the mood in the locker room like?
Oh, we're fired up, man. Fired up. Got some free time coming. We're 5-5. Got everything in front of us, So I think it's a great opportunity to go home, get healthy, and hit this back half of the season with a lot of confidence.
That was quarterback Gardner Minshew talking about the Colts' 10-6 hard-fought win over the New England Patriots in Frankfurt, Germany. Again, a tough game for the Colts, but the interception, again, sometimes you need a little bit of good fortune to go your way. I'm not even going to call it luck. Nothing went right for this team last year. They made the Matt Ryan trade. It didn't work out. He was constantly under fire. The offensive line was bad. JT got hurt. The defense couldn't stop anybody. They would get huge leads sometimes and then cough them up in historic fashion sometimes. Just felt like nothing went right for this team. It's unfortunate that Anthony Richardson got hurt this year, their rookie quarterback. Minshew's come in and gotten this team some wins, and it hasn't always been pretty. And that's fine. That's what the Colts are dealing with in their reality right now. But they did get a couple of breaks. And one of those breaks was Minshew, and I talked about this just a couple of minutes ago before we heard from Gardner. He just feels like he's running around sometimes when he doesn't necessarily need to be. He's kind of not settling down in the pocket. When he knows that there's an extra guy coming, even when it gets picked up, it's like the clock in his head gets accelerated. And on the interception that he threw, which was near midfield, Colts were trying to put on a little bit of drive, maybe get some points. It looked like Gardner had a lane to pick up a few yards. And instead, he tries to throw this pass on the run. It was a really nice play by the New England defender. I'm not saying it's not, but he gets up and he tips that ball and New England intercepts it. But if Gardner had just gone ahead and tucked that ball and run, I don't think he necessarily gets the first down, but I do think maybe with a pump fake or something like that, he gets that defender off his feet, and maybe he's able to get close to the first down. But at any rate, they would have kept that drive alive there for at least one more play to see what they could muster. Now, when I talked about good fortune, this is what I mean by it. Yeah, they turned the ball over. This was a key moment in the game. You didn't want to have that happen. I mean, it was their first possession of the second half, and that's the whole reason you defer on that opening kickoff, is so that you can get the ball to start the second half and try to get some points. And ideally, you can have the ball at the end of the first half and then try to double it up on your opponent. But instead, Minshew threw the interception, of course, on that drive. They also had the pass interference against Pittman on what would have been a nice play, an offensive pass interference, and it was. He totally pushed off on the guy to get himself open. But Minshew throws that ball, and it gets intercepted. It just comes at the worst possible time, right? And at this point, it's the only turnover of the game. The Colts, while the offense hasn't looked stellar, They have gotten some points. They've not turned the ball over. Well, here comes the big turnover that, you kind of have braced for over the last couple of weeks. The Colts are fortunate. The defense holds up here in the idea that they did not give up a touchdown. They kept New England out of the end zone, and then they got a break. And the break was that New England missed a 35-yard field goal. Not by much, mind you, but they missed the 35-yard field goal. And that was a major, major moment in the game, because if New England hits that field goal, then it changes the entire complexity of that second half. When the Patriots get down there, Mac Jones doesn't throw that interception because the Patriots probably go for a field goal to go ahead at that point in the game. But since they'd missed the field goal, the math didn't work out for them. They had to score touchdowns in order to get back into the game. So that was huge. After the missed field goal, the Colts punted. They did give up another field goal to New England after that, but then the Colts were able to cash in off of an Isaiah McKenzie kick return, 42 yards I think it was, and that set Matt Gay up for a 51-yard field goal. That made it 10-6. It had been 7-6, and then that made it 10-6. And again, that missed field goal from New England, this would have been a 10-9 game. And so when you have the drama that ensues at the end of the game, would have played out much, much differently if New England had hit that field goal. So they got a little bit of good fortune there. And then they also had some good fortune with just an inexplicable throw or a bad decision from Mac Jones. I think it was more of a bad throw than it was a bad decision, trying to hit his tight end in the end zone in what probably would have been the game-winning score. I mean, maybe the Colts, go down and are able to respond to that. But he throws this interception, and Julian Blackmon is just right there. And it gets severely underthrown. Blackmon doesn't get up immediately, but he does eventually get up and get the ball out to the 5. But man, I think I don't know if he thought he was in the end zone and that he would get touchdown and it would be a touchback, or if he was just so stunned that ball went right to him. Gets it out to the 5. That allows the Colts to choose some clock, make the Patriots use their timeouts, and sets up a last drive. And instead of Mac Jones coming out with the offense for the final drive, it's Bailey Zappi, the backup quarterback who sometimes comes in to mop up when Belichick's not happy with how Mac Jones is playing. So Zappi comes in there. It's still a 10-6 game, couple minutes on the clock. Patriots with, no timeouts, trying to get, the game-winning drive out there. And, they don't get much here. It starts out at the 14-yard line, short pass for 5 yards, then an incomplete pass, then another pass to Hunter Henry for a first down for 11 yards. 1st and 10, incomplete pass, then another incompletion by Zappi. 3rd and 10, he does get a pass to 9 yards to make it a 4th and 1, which the Patriots then convert. Then with this clock running, I mean, you're looking at under 50 seconds, I think, left in this game, like 40 seconds, something along those lines. Zappi comes up, and he fake spikes the ball to clock it because, again, the Patriots don't have any timeouts, and the clock is not their friend, and then just sort of airmails one over the middle of the field to a stable, I guess you could say, of Colts defensive backs, and Rodney Thomas is there to pick it off. And then after that, it's the greatest play in football, which is the kneel down in the victory formation. So the Colts coming away with a 10-6 win, hard-fought win for them. Let's hear from head coach Shane Steichen.
What's up, guys? Just injury report. Ryan Kelly, concussion during the game, and that's all I got right now for you guys. That, ready when you are.
Shane, on their 2 field goal drives, they used up almost 15 minutes of game time, huge possessions. How important was it to hold them to 3 on both?
I mean, it was huge. Our defense, they played awesome the entire game. To hold a team like that to 6 points, any team in the National Football League to hold them to 6 points is phenomenal. It's always going to give yourself, your team a chance to win. But it was huge. That's what we talked about during the week. Hey, when they get in the red zone, they've been really good down in there scoring touchdowns in the red zone. So prevent them from scoring those touchdowns at home to the 2 field goals was huge.
What was it like seeing Julian? He had the one where he could have picked it, probably was hard on himself, and then he comes back and picks the huge one. Obviously.
Yeah, no, it was big. Shoot, I was just talking to him in the locker room. He got the pick, and he was about on the 2-yard line. I'm on the sidelines. Get up and get some yards. So we ain't on the 2. And he got it out to the 5, which was good. But to get those 2 interceptions, win the turnover battle, we've won the turnover battle now 5 games, and we've won 5 games. So.
What did you think of Josh Downs' catch there, that third down?
Oh, it was huge. It was awesome. Just his excitement that he had to create that big play. Great scramble, by Gardner to get it to him, but to lay out and make that play. That's what preparation does. You prepare the right way, and you go out and make those plays on Sunday.
How difficult was this week for him? He didn't practice, and it seemed like you guys kind of brought him in almost like late second quarter.
Yeah, no, we used him sparingly, on some third downs and stuff. But you know what? He's been in the system now, obviously 10 weeks in, and going through those meetings and sitting in those meetings and understand what we're trying to get done to go out and execute it.
Shane, did it feel like there were some opportunities in the passing game you guys missed for whatever reason?
Yeah, I think any game, you go into any game, there's always going to be some opportunities you want back. But we'll go look at the tape. Obviously, there's a few, that we'd like to have back. But we found a way to get it done, and that's the name of the game, is winning the football games. And our defense, stepped up. We moved the ball offensively, but we didn't finish our drives like we normally do. But it was good to get the win.
How did Dial set the tone? 3 sacks in the first half? Obviously, huge performance.
Yeah, no, it's huge. Anytime, it starts with the D-line, offensive lines up front. For Dial to get that, going out there and playing like he did, and the rest of the defensive line, it was big, setting the tone early.
Shane, what was the reaction on your side of seeing the Patriots make the change on the final drive at quarterback?
Yeah, I didn't know if Mac was hurt or what. I wasn't sure. So.
What does it say about this team that you've been able to win games in different ways now, going into 5?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, you start playing your best football in November and December, and you start climbing. You kind of find out about teams late, second half of the season. So to be 2-0 and finding different ways to win it, our defense has obviously stepped up the last 2 weeks in Carolina and then now here against the Patriots. But the big thing is just playing that complementary football, back and forth going forward so we can be at our best coming off the bye.
What about Minshew, who made some great plays out of the pocket, showed great escapability? The Minshew shimmy they talk about, and did make some plays, so keep making them. Talk about his ability to make plays happen when they need.
Yeah, no, he's got some savviness to him. Some of those third downs, especially early on that first drive, I think we had 2 third downs, created some big plays on some scrambles, which was huge. And then obviously the big one we just talked about to Josh Downs was huge. But he's got good poise, he sees it well, and it was good. It was a good team. It was a good team win.
Shane, I know it's just one game, but the long trip over and back, hitting the bye, back to 500, how big is this one?
That's huge. I mean, it's huge to get to 500 before the bye. Get these guys a week off, get them some rest, and then come back, and hit the ground running. We got Tampa Bay, coming back in our place in a couple weeks, so we're looking forward to it.
JT took almost all the carries today.
Yeah.
Was that dealing with anything, or was that just?
No, just some of the things we had up for JT. That was just the way it went.
Why do you think the sneaky brother from Philly has struggled a little bit?
I don't know. We got to look at it. That's a good question. I'm going to study it hard, obviously, going forward, and we'll go from there.
Couple more. Go ahead, just ask you.
What do you think? Do you think you were the team with the stronger nerves at the end, and that's why you were winning? And what do you do for your mental work?
I think the biggest thing, our guys, they found a way, and it's really just, staying focused on the sideline and just keeping them juiced up and saying, hey, let's go make another play. And the guys were playing awesome on defense, and then to get the turnover right there at the end to win it was huge.
Coach, what kind of message do you relay to players now that it's 5-5, 500 in the season? You mentioned giving them some time off, you now have the bye week as well to get healthy. And bear in mind, the record doesn't necessarily speak to the talent and the competitiveness of this team. What kind of message do you relay that to?
In the locker room was just, hey, get healthy, and let's go make a run at this thing. We got 7 games left. We're right in the thick of it, and let's play our best football in November and December going forward.
Coach, the game where you've had to travel so far away from home, you're the designated away team for the week. Just how rewarding does this win feel, and are you a fan of the international games?
Oh, yeah, no, it's been awesome to come over here and experience this. This is my 3rd time doing international games. And it was great. Obviously, the Frankfurt and Germany and everything was great hosts for us, and we really enjoyed it. It was great.
That was head coach Shane Steichen talking about the Colts 10-6 win over the Patriots in Germany. That was around a 9:30 a.m. kickoff here for those of us in the Eastern time zone. Let's take a look real quickly at the defense. Zaire Franklin led all tacklers. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Glad you're back, Zaire. 15 tackles, 12 of them solo. Some of them impactful. Shaq Leonard, the second leading tackler with 9, but only 2 of those were solo. And it felt to me like, and it's all about defensive scheme and what you're trying to do. And this defense is different from what Matt Eberflus ran when Shaq really thrived in the defense. But Guy's having trouble getting off his blocks. He's getting manhandled a bit and just seems to be a step behind everything. Shaq has been talking about how he needs to be out there and he wants to make splash plays. And when you say that, it sounds great, but you've got to go out there and you've got to do it. And he had a chance to make a couple out there. There was a chance for him to fall on a fumble early in the game. He was unable to recover it. There was a chance for him to stop Ezekiel Elliott for what would have been, a tackle for a loss. But instead, it kind of bounces right off of him. It becomes a nice play for New England. So the 9 tackles were not particularly impactful. DeForest Buckner, 8 tackles, 4 of them solo, a tackle for loss. He had a couple of QB hits. And while it wasn't quite the huge game that he had last week against Carolina, DeForest was very much in the mix here and had a nice game. Kenny Moore, 6 tackles, 5 of them solo. No passes defended or anything like that this week. Just kind of a normal game for Kenny Moore after last week's just incredible game that he had against Panthers with the 2 interceptions and the touchdowns. Dayo Odeyingbo, my goodness, man, especially in the first half. That guy was everywhere. He had 4 tackles, 4 of them solo, 3 sacks for Dayo. And you kind of been waiting for that second piece of the Colts pass rush to kind of kick in because you're going to have Buckner out there. But they kind of moved Odeyingbo around, and he was able to get some pressure off the edge. They looped him around a couple of times. He was able to get some pressure. And so they really did a good job of getting a pass rush this week. Kwity Paye also had a sack, and so did Tyquan Lewis, so that was the 5 sacks that the Colts had. Interceptions again, Julian Blackmon with 1, Rodney Thomas for another there, both with small returns, short returns for each of them there. Isaiah McKenzie again with a 42-yard kickoff return, and that led to a 51-yard field goal from Matt Gay. Now, both teams in this game had missed field goals. Gay missed from 57 yards for the Colts near the end of the first half. Then the Patriots missed a 35-yard one. And you don't want to miss field goals, period. But I think you also understand that 57-yard field goal is kind of a 50-50 ball. Like, with Matt Gay, you feel your odds are pretty good. We've seen him do it. We saw the Baltimore game. Guy's got a leg. It was online, but just a little bit short. Like, just a little bit. And, you understand if a guy misses a 57-yard field goal. That's not an automatic. You would love to have it. It would have been great to have it, get those points. Didn't quite work out. But when you're the Patriots and you're in field goal range and you're attempting a 35-yard field goal, you've got to have that. You've got to convert that if you're an NFL kicker. And, that's why the Patriots are 2-8. They were 2-7 coming to this game, and they left Germany in this quote-unquote home game 2-8. So the Colts will have a bye week coming up, and what that means for the Colts Blue Zone podcast is this is going to be our sole episode this week. I'm going to give Dave Griffiths and Mike Chappell the week off, as the Colts have a week off, because we're not anticipating anything major from the team. If that changes, if there is something big that happens, maybe we'll put together a short podcast to discuss any team news that would come out or anything like that. But we're not anticipating that will be the case, but you can't anticipate the news. But typically bye weeks are going to be quiet. Everybody's going to go and get away from the game for a week or so, enjoy some time off, rest, relax, heal, that sort of thing. Much needed and much better to have a bye week where you're coming off the win instead of having that loss fester the whole week. So good on the Colts for that. Again, the Colts have a week off. They will next play Tampa Bay on Sunday, November the 26th. That'll be the Sunday after Thanksgiving. It's not a great Buccaneers team, and the Colts will have an opportunity here. I mean, this schedule is, it's not easy. It's not super easy, but, they've got Tampa Bay at home, then it's at Tennessee. We'll see how the Titans are doing. They're having a rough year. At Cincinnati, it's a pretty good Bengals team. They lost a tough one to those Texans, those rising Houston Texans, by the way. Then it's home against Pittsburgh. Still no day and date yet, or time for that one yet. Then they're at Atlanta, home against Las Vegas, and then home against Houston. So there are some winnable games there, and the Colts just need to keep themselves in the playoff hunt. And win a game that you're supposed to win, maybe win a game that you shouldn't win. And things could get very, very interesting for the rest of the season. But again, this will be our sole podcast of the week. For Dave Griffiths and Mike Chappell, I'm Matt Adams. Thanks for listening.